Hey Jasmine, how have
Hi, Inga.
how you been? You been good?
Yes, minus the cloudy weather. So,
Oh,
of course, that's always not too good. And it's been raining for like the past week. But other than that, it's a pretty good day. How are you?
it's good. Just really hot in here in Vegas.
Oh, you're in Vegas.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't imagine the heat. I'm in North Carolina, and I mean, the humidity is bad here, but I've heard Vegas heat is vastly different.
Oh yeah. Especially since we're going through a heat wave right now. They keep saying, "Oh yeah, it's gonna end like in a couple days," and then all of a sudden, they keep extending it. It's like, why don't you just say it's gonna be here until the whole summer?
Right. Or just say you don't know. That's a
Yeah,
better answer anyway.
yeah, exactly, right. That's the weather for you. The weather channels, they're
That's
always like,
true.
can't predict anything.
At all. Not anymore.
Yeah, definitely for sure. So, what would you like to share about your autism journey?
So first, of course, my name is Jasmine. I am high functioning, and so I am also a late diagnosed E. I didn't get diagnosed until I was 23, and I'm 31 now. So it's been interesting. A lot of masking,
Yes.
a lot of confusion, a lot of not knowing who I am, a lot of self-reflection, and a lot of understanding
Yeah,
and grace that I'm learning how to give myself throughout the process.
that's good. And do you say like there's some good and bads to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a few of the struggles that I have with being autistic is like sarcasm, of course,
Mhm.
not understanding when somebody's being serious or when somebody's joking, and then trying to have to acquiesce to that. Another issue is my social battery gets drained very, very easily. So I require a lot of alone time, probably more so than normal people. So I miss out, unfortunately, on a lot of events and a lot of activities. Another thing I would say is like the overthinking when people are saying something and I'm like, okay, but that doesn't make sense to me. So is that what you really mean? Or is there something that you mean, but you don't know how to properly communicate it? And that becomes an issue with, of course, interpersonal relationships and communication in that. So those are some of the things that I have struggled with. And then just knowing who I am, accepting who I am, and showing up as my authentic self, that's something I'm still learning.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good to it as well, because I've been told people actually respect my honesty,
Yeah.
even though they know that is like I'm not trying to be brutally honest.
Mhm.
I can't sugarcoat it. You
Yeah.
have to get it direct because that's how I understand it. I can't beat around the bush. I can't tell you what you want to hear. It's always going to be how I see it in my point of view, and that's that. I'm not going to, BS. Another positive thing I would say is that I think it has made me more empathetic to other people. So social interactions is my major struggle and things that I deal with as far as being autistic. But the interaction, the perception, seeing the world from my perspective, but also being inquisitive to understand other people's perspective in order to expand my own, that has been very, I think that has helped me in a lot of ways, not just learning how to navigate my autism, but also how to navigate the world in and of itself.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way of looking at it, because I mean, there is, everyone looks at the world differently and we all have to cope with it, how we can, the best we can, and that's actually really good that you learned that, your own coping mechanisms, so I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, it was, I would say, one of the things that I hated as a child because I knew something was different. I didn't know how to figure it out because, of course, I'm a kid. And then my parents never took the avenue to take me to get tested, to see what was wrong, to have me in therapy or anything. So I kind of like been on this journey of trying to figure things out on my own. And I knew how I struggled just as a person, but also as a neurodivergent.
Yeah.
struggling because I see the world one way. I see things different. I'm always asking questions, always looking to understand. And sometimes the people who could provide those answers are frustrated with the process. And because they're not educated and they don't know what's going on with me, and I don't know what's going on with me, sometimes it becomes like a pile of just negativity
Mm,
and frustration and stress and anger.
yeah, I can understand that. Yeah. I mean, would you say like your superpower, what would you say your superpower is?
Empathy.
Yeah.
I think my superpower is empathy. Empathy allows me to understand people very well. So even if I can't relate
Hmm.
or I don't have anything in common with them or I don't understand like the decisions they make, the behaviors they have, I can always be empathetic with them. And so a part of how I do, maybe this could help, others out there with autism that have a problem with relating to other people is if somebody tells me a story and I personally cannot relate to the story, I create a story within the story in my head. So
Oh,
as they're telling me whatever topic or subject it is, I'm like having a whole movie scene in
oh,
my head of it playing out of what they're saying. And that has helped me understand people a lot better. So even if it's like, I hate science. So I don't hate science. It's not my favorite subject. So let's say somebody is enthusiastic about science and they're talking about it and my brain is like, it's not interesting. I'm not dealing with it. It's causing me frustration. I'm spazzing out and zoning out into something else.
mhm.
I would be like, okay, well, I like movies, I like shows, I like stories. So let's try to turn this into a story. And so I make up little characters in my head. I have a whole scene. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And it makes it easier for me to understand what they're saying versus sometimes when I was young, that was my go-to. I don't get it. Oh,
You
can you hear
just
me?
froze.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So sorry about that. I was saying how creating this image in my head of whatever it is that they're saying that I don't necessarily understand as a means to find a way to relate
Mhm.
has been something that has helped me in my adulthood, but I've realized that it has caused like issues in my childhood. So when I was younger and I would try to do that same method, of course, dealing with my peers and people my age,
Mhm.
sometimes it came off as me being, I would say, a know-it-all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, people took it the wrong way, right? Like, oh,
Right.
yeah.
And it wasn't that I knew it all. It was I was just trying to get them to see how I was understanding it and how it was portraying to me and how they could, better communicate it so that there wouldn't be any issues between us. But you live and you learn.
Exactly, right? That's my saying. You live and learn.
Yes.
Right on, for sure. And also, I was going to mention, you said that you have two boys, right? And you said that
Yes.
that might be on the spectrum, right? That might have autism.
Yes. So my youngest Jaden, I've seen signs in him since he was younger. He, well, it's like him and his brother are day and night. So my oldest Aiden, he talked very quickly for his age. He walked very quickly. He had his own special interests with solar systems and things like that. He's even now, he surpasses a lot of the kids in his class when it comes to math and reading and science and things of that nature. So I did ask this teacher, based off of her observation, did she feel as though he was autistic?
Mhm.
And she said no, but I know for a fact he is neurodivergent just based off of how his brain works, how he does math equations, how he figures things out. I'm just not sure if there's something out there yet that could properly explain it.
Mhm.
But with my youngest, there were um a few speech delays. He started a little bit later in talking. One thing that he does, I haven't seen it as recently as the couple of months because I took him to get it addressed, but he does ballet toes.
Oh,
And he's been doing it since he was a baby. As soon as he started walking, he would walk on his tippy toes.
yeah.
And then he'll like walk and sway, walk and sway. Another thing that I realized with him, he's very antisocial.
Mm,
So he's like me. He can only interact with people for so long until he needs to decompress and get away. He's not really much of a talker unless he's comfortable. But even then, there's been times where he'll come in my room. I'm not a big talker,
yeah.
and we'll watch TV together and we'll just sit there for hours,
Yeah.
quiet, not saying nothing.
Wow. That's
Mm.
great.
And when I seen him when he was, I would say between 1 to about 6 years old, he's 7 now,
Mm,
he had a hard time expressing his emotions.
mhm,
And of course, anger was the only emotion he knew how to express. So whether something was bothering him, whether he was sad, whether he was upset, it always came out in anger and tantrums. So that's some of the few traits that I see in him that I'm like, okay, and he doesn't like eye contact at all.
yeah.
But those are a few traits that I've seen in him where I'm like, okay, there might be something to look into just for me to know and then for me to understand, okay, this is how I need to navigate this situation because
Mm,
unfortunately, women tend to be more high functioning and masking than boys or men.
mhm,
And so it's easy for women to go under the radar without being detected for majority of the time, unless they decide to go and say, hey, something is not quite right. I need to see what's really going on with me.
mhm,
But with boys, it's easier to start looking at it at an early age and be like, okay, yeah, these are the symptoms. This is what we need to do to get you tested and see if you need additional help and services.
yeah, I agree. I mean, that's how I realize it too. Like, boys are so much easier to realize, like, okay, well, you might have something, there's something might be going on with them. But then, like the girls, you can't really tell until they kind of get older, actually. Because,
Yeah.
I think, for some reason, girls at a very early age, they learn how to mask it. Like, I don't know how that's so interesting, how each gender is like, they learn that kind of situation, like how to mask, how not to mask, just
You know
amazing.
what I think my theory is when it comes to girls?
Hmm.
We play very differently than boys. So boys are more interactive. We play more in our imaginary space. We play with dolls, we play with Barbies, we pretend and play house, we play this, we play that. And so I think based off of course, how we play, how
Yeah.
we interact, we learn how to imagine
Oh, that's
and
true.
put on certain characteristics
Mhm.
to be able to function properly. So for me, I think that's a part of what I did was just took my imagination of how I used to play
Mhm.
and imagine the world like that. Okay, pretend like when I was working in accounting, pretend that, you're an accountant and you're
Yeah.
going to work and you're making money and this is your job. And that's what I did until I came home and it was like, this isn't,
Hmm.
I'm not okay. I'm drained. I'm tired. I'm
Yeah.
exhausted. And then I think another part of it is that we are more self-conscious than men are when
Yeah.
it comes to how other people view us. And unfortunately, it's not always our fault. Sometimes it's society.
Mhm.
You have to be a certain size, you have to do certain things, and you have to act a certain way and you have to just present yourself a certain way. And so, based off of that, my belief is that with societal standards, sometimes the dynamics of the family and then us just naturally
Mhm.
creating our own worlds within themselves,
Mhm.
it makes it easier for us to mask and kind of feel like we're more obligated
Yeah.
to mask so that we can show up to be perfect when we're not.
Hmm. That is true. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. It's definitely something to think about. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
wow. Yeah, that's very amazing.
Yeah, and it's sad, I think. So, especially when you're neurodivergent.
Mhm.
and you think differently, you interact differently, and then you're not given a space as a child, depending on, your parents' belief about autism, how
Mhm.
they view it, and their own personal sometimes triggers with it or knowledge. You're not necessarily given a space to whereas you can show up
Mhm.
as yourself. You can show up and be who you are. Like me being verbal with no filter, it was always seen as I was being disrespectful.
Mhm.
When in actuality, I wasn't being disrespectful. I just don't know how to, I guess, sugarcoat things in a way where it's palatable for other people.
Mhm. Which is good. I mean, it's good to be, like very truthful with everyone. I mean, like my son,
Oh yeah.
I don't really ask him, questions about myself because I'm always like, oh, I'm going to get too
Yeah.
much of a true answer, honest answer, And so I try to not do that. But, otherwise, but it's great, I mean, like when we go out and about, he's like, he mentions, sometimes like sometimes he comments on certain people and I'm like, oh, well, you don't, sometimes you got to tell them because they don't know, they're still young and
Yeah.
they know that they're saying something wrong and they just want to say like, okay, what's wrong with that person, but you just say, oh, well, don't, be that person just, kind of explain what's going on with the person. And then he's like, okay. But then he still thinks like, okay, well, why though? Why are they like that? Or, like, just certain things, it's just like, you got to try to like explain more to them so then they don't think in a bad situation, think of in a bad situation by the way. And so that's why I kind of like that's how I help him, try to cope with that kind of thing, just like, but I mean, that's interesting though, just what they can come up with. It's just like, wow, okay. Like you think
Yes.
of that how'd that come into your mind, and just like, okay. But like right now he's really into twisters, tornado.
Oh.
And so he's really, we actually went and saw that movie, Twisters, a new one. And he loved the movie, but he was also terrified at the same time
Mm-hmm.
because he's like, wow, I didn't know this is that realistic, and so, but it's
Yeah,
just,
my oldest used to whirlpools.
oh, whirlpools, yeah,
Mm-hmm. And they have the toys now where you can make the whirlpools.
really, oh,
Mm-hmm.
really.
So if that's his special interest, yeah, books, he'll love the books. But my son, my oldest,
Mhm.
that was for the longest, he was solar system. And
Mhm.
then he went from solar systems to whirlpools.
Oh, wow.
And so for his birthday, I think it was like his fifth birthday,
Mhm.
we got him a toy
Mhm.
to where as you put the water in, you could put different things in it, and it makes the whirlpool.
Oh, wow.
And every time we would do the dishes, he'll say, "That's a whirlpool." Bath time, whirlpool. He'll see the cyclone on the news when a hurricane was coming,
Mhm.
whirlpool, and that was his fascination. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, he's saying he wants to chase tornadoes now.
Tornado. Oh, that might be fun.
Yeah.
Very destructive, but actually that might be fun. I've always been curious about tornadoes too.
Yeah. Well, he's always been into the whole weather thing. He loves the weather. He's always telling us, "Oh, is this, degrees outside or it's going to rain outside," or always looking at the weather app, always looking at the, checking out the weather. And so I'm like, you should be into that, go be that.
Yeah.
I call it a weatherologist, but I know it's not called that. Meteor,
Weatherman.
weather. But so I was always telling him, I was like, you sure to try to do that? And but we'll see how it goes.
hmm
He just
But
seems
you said he doesn't like being in front of the camera either. So
yeah, I mean, I'm sure he would for that kind of thing. It's just that
yeah.
want me to put him on camera. Yeah,
Oh. So it's
so
okay when somebody else does it, but he just doesn't want mom to do it.
probably, yeah, I'm sure that is. Or even if he's doing it himself,
It's fine.
yeah,
He's more comfortable. That makes sense. Yeah.
he's in
Because
control.
and that's what it is.
Hmm. Yeah,
He
so
has to be in control.
yeah,
Okay. I think he should do it. If
yeah,
he's passionate about it, why not?
yeah. I should probably try to get him into that more into it. Try to get him like start getting him more things so he can get learn more about it. I think that's
Yeah,
a good idea.
that is videos, books.
Hmm.
I don't know about a tornado maker. I'm pretty sure they have one.
Yeah, they had one on Twisters.
Yeah, they did. They sure did. You're right about that. So why not tornadoes? Or maybe they could make like a game, not a game, but like some sort of toy or something where you could take it and
Mhm,
take the sand in it and cause it to turn into, I don't know, that'd be cool.
mhm.
Having sand versus water turn into
Yeah,
a tornado.
yeah. I think that'd be great. That'd be very interesting. Oh, I was also going to mention too, like, did you want to mention how you help out the autism community? 'Cause I know that you're,
Oh, so
and introduce
one
yourself,
thing,
like, how you want to be introduced.
oh, yeah, we just started talking. I completely forgot. So, what I do is I guess my full-time, my job or business, I am a female entrepreneur and I actually, after we had a conversation yesterday, I decided to switch gears. So,
Okay.
I'm no longer focusing on self-care anymore. I'm actually focusing more so on trauma because when we talked, like I said, you brought up a lot of things that I went through as a child that, I
Mhm,
necessarily didn't get the help with when it came to me being autistic and seeing you take steps and get the education and truly try to understand what your son is going through. It
mhm,
kind of shifted my gears. So I'm now focusing and I'm relaunching and rebranding everything to focus so more so on trauma.
mhm. That's a
And
good idea.
so a part of it is, of course, helping female entrepreneurs. But what I want to do eventually, once I gather enough research and understanding, I want to see specifically how our trauma affects us as neurodivergent people.
Okay.
Because I think that has a part to play in it. Well, it's not, I think, I know it has a part to play in it as well. Depending on the level of trauma you experience as an autistic person, can also determine how well you manage your symptoms
Mhm.
or how vastly how worse it gets over time.
Yeah,
So that's something I'm looking into as well. So I'm shifting gears there.
that's
And a
great.
part of it is because of our conversation. Like you brought a lot of things to the forefront for me. And it caused like me to really look at it. And I'm like, well, some of the stuff that I've gone through isn't because I just need to go through it. Like
Mhm.
I really don't speak on me being autistic because I feel like you said, everybody is autistic in some sort of way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
And the spectrum is so vast
Mhm,
that the symptoms aren't always the same.
mhm.
There's certain if you have a keen attention to detail and you have a full understanding, you can pick out who's autistic, who's not
Mhm.
in a crowd. But that's kind of like one of the reasons why I never thought to like really put it out there, like, hey, I'm an autistic person, I'm
Yeah.
neurodivergent, this is how I think, this is how I am, here's my
Mhm.
struggles, this is me. But I think I'm going to start. I think it's necessary.
No, I think that's great. I mean, I'm glad I was able to help you out in that situation. I mean,
Yes, I'm glad I talked to
sure.
you because
Thank
it was nice to see the other side of it from a parent's perspective.
you. Hmm.
And so if it comes out later on and my son is autistic, well, I don't think it would really matter
Yeah.
because he knows I am. And so we acquiesce to each other very well. But if it comes out, he won't feel like he's any different
Mhm.
and he won't feel like he's isolated in his experiences. So,
No, that's great. Yeah, I mean, that's mainly what we all have to do. We all have to support each other. And that's
yes.
my main thing is over here, where I just want to help people, that they're supported, that, they're being heard, they're being seen. That's my whole thing with this whole podcast. I just want to make sure that people know that, it's a safe place. You can talk about the good, the bad, you know, the proudest moments, like what you think, is autism is like, there are some good moments and
There
there's
is.
moments, I mean, there's some very good things to autism and people just always hear the bad. And I'm always like, I want to make sure that people know that, there is, of course, but there's also the
Mhm.
good. So I just want to make sure that, we kind of like even it out, so it's not
Yeah. And
such,
there's more good than bad.
yeah. Because a lot of people are scared, you know, like once they get their diagnosis or their child gets a diagnosis, they're like, oh my gosh, now what? You know, and I just want to make sure people know that, you know, there's nothing to worry about, you know, you just got to learn to, you know, educate yourself and just learn more and just talk to people, you know, the more you talk to people, the more you support you get. It's just like, it helps, I think.
It
And
does.
yeah, and so that's why, I mean, I'm always looking for guests, you know, and especially, you know, like I mean, I'm always, you know, reaching out. And so whoever wants to be a guest, you know, and
And
share.
I'll keep that in mind. And if I come across any
Mhm,
moms, and I think I know a few who have children with autism or anybody who actually has autism themselves,
mhm,
I would definitely send them your way because I agree. I think one of the things I would have wanted as a child was to be accepted.
mhm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what everyone's looking for, you know, everyone wants
Yes,
it in their own little quirks and, you know, everything else, you know, I mean, we're all different. We're all, you know, have our own little quirks. We all have our own little way of living and coping and stuff. So I mean, I think it's a great thing.
it is. And
For sharing.
I appreciate your platform for it.
Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome.
Okay. So it was nice talking to you. It was great meeting you. I mean, I was, you know, looking forward to our other meeting because I know that we have
Yes,
another recording coming up, and so
your interview.
yes, my interview, and so looking forward to that. And it was great talking with you. And see you later.
You too, Inga. Thank you.